Hey everybody, this is at now_world_order from Twitter, and this is going to be my thoughts on what's been going on in the UFC. UFC 175 was last night on pay-per-view, and the TUF 19 finale just ended. If you see me looking up while I'm shooting this video, it's because I've got Fox Sports 1 on, and I'm kind of keeping up with all the post-fight stuff as I'm doing this. I'm going to pause it probably when Dana White gets interviewed here in a second, so I can watch it after I make this video. But last night, man, I was at a birthday party. Being the good friend that I am, I missed UFC 175 live, but I did record it. I told everyone on Facebook, Twitter, I texted anyone that watches the shows, please do not let me know what's going on. I'm going to watch this afterwards. I went to like 4 or 5 bars with the people I was out with for this birthday party. There were TVs on everywhere. There was ESPN on everywhere. But I avoided it. I did not see what happened. And after I sobered up, I came home at like 5:30 in the morning and watched the entire show when I got back without it being spoiled. And that was a feat in itself. I can't believe I went the whole night without finding out. I saw little pictures and stuff all over the place, and I would just turn fast enough that I didn't know what was going on. So, yeah. Anyway, so the main event last night, of course, was Chris Weidman versus Lyoto Machida for the middleweight championship, and Weidman, retained the title. It was a really good title fight. It wasn't. I don't think it was like this classic that everyone is kind of saying it was, or at least a lot of people. But it was a very good fight. Machida really turned it on in the last 2 rounds. It would have been really interesting to see what would have happened if Machida would have fought like that the entire fight. But his style is that, elusive style, and Weidman is always coming at you. So, Weidman has said he didn't have a good camp for the fight. Regardless, it was a good fight. It was a good showing, and, I look forward to seeing what else happens during this Chris Weidman title reign. I would assume, as long as Vitor Belfort can get sanctioned, that he's going to be Machida's next fight. If not, I think it'll be the winner of Mousasi and Jacare. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But, like I said, good main event. The co-main event, Ronda Rousey defeated Alexis Davis to remain undefeated and remain the undisputed champion at bantamweight for the women in the UFC. What do you really say? I think Ronda Rousey is probably the most dominant champion I've ever seen in the sport of MMA, and absolutely in the young time that women's MMA has been a thing, professionally, especially in the UFC. She finished Davis, and I think it was officially 16 seconds. And wow, I really don't know what else to say about it other than it was just a dominant performance. And Davis was so out of it that she tried to wrestle the referee after the match, and yeah, that was that. Rousey, afterwards, it was weird because she was asked by Joe Rogan if she would be willing to jump in next month at UFC 176 because we lost the main event of that fight. Apparently, Rogan was told by the production team, like the truck, to ask that question. Dana White was not happy about it, and even though Rousey, I believe, would want to fight in a month if she kind of had to, and if the UFC really needed her, I think she would, because she took absolutely zero damage in that victory last night. But from what I understand, Rousey is going to need knee surgery. That she's been putting that off, and she opened a cyst on her finger during the fight, so she won't be medically cleared, to my understanding, to fight next month. And I'll talk a little bit more about UFC 176 here in a minute. Just a minute ago, we had Frankie Edgar versus BJ Penn, number 3. It was on the TUF 19 finale on Fox Sports 1. Edgar just looked like he was on another level. He's beat the guy 3 times now. It was a dominant victory. BJ's time is up, and actually, as I speak right now on Fox Sports 1, there's a quote from Dana White: "Fighting is a young man's game." And that pretty much pretty much defines it. There's a couple guys who can get away with it, like Dan Henderson and Josh Barnett. Some of these legendary guys that can still keep going at a high level, but BJ Penn is just never going to hit that championship level again. And Frankie Edgar, I believe, is ranked number 3 in the division now, which he deserves. Not a whole lot more to say about this. I believe Dana White is going to pressure BJ Penn to retire if he doesn't on his own. There's no shame in this. If this video ever happens to cross BJ Penn, we respect what you did. You were the man when the sport was the way the sport used to be. And that's no disrespect. It was just a completely different sport than what it is now. We've got athlete versus athlete. Everyone knows, they're all full-rounded mixed martial artists. I'm not saying BJ Penn isn't, but he comes from that generation of guys that were only good at 1 or 2 disciplines, but the other people didn't have the skill to match. BJ Penn got away with not even really training for the majority of his career. So, thank you, BJ. You're obviously a first ballot UFC Hall of Famer. Whatever you decide to do next, I'll respect, but I don't want to see BJ Penn, getting knocked out, and I don't want to see his career end how Chuck Liddell's career ended, and that's that. But what do they do next with Frankie Edgar? It sucks for Cub Swanson because I think he's deserved the winner of Mendez versus Aldo, but if Aldo and Mendez aren't going to fight for a while, if that's still the plan the UFC wants to go with, then it makes the most sense to do Cub Swanson versus Frankie Edgar while we wait for this Mendez versus Aldo thing to to smooth out and resolve itself. It's just one of those situations where they can't have Swanson on the shelf, especially if this takes 6 months to a year or whatever it takes for him to. I don't know what the time frame is, but I'm just saying, let's just say it's something like that. Swanson's going to have to fight, and Edgar needs to fight opponents that are, top 5, and Swanson makes the most sense. So, I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. Just some other thoughts of some news from the UFC. Chael Sonnen, I mentioned in my last MMA video, I believe I mentioned that he had retired from MMA, and we found out afterwards that he actually had failed a second drug test that was a week and a half, 2 weeks after the initial test that we know that he failed for the substances that he claimed he was using to wean himself off of testosterone replacement therapy. Dana White was really quick, and the UFC was really quick to defend and back up Chael Sonnen, while also making it known that the commission was doing its job. It's such a gray, sketchy area of how to deal with this TRT thing. It's a mess, but it will resolve itself at some point, hopefully in the very near future. But we found out that Sonnen had failed a second drug test, and that he had HGH and other banned substances in his system. I think it was 5 total, which means what most likely happened is Sonnen got tested at the end of May. He was taking the substances that he got in trouble with, weaning himself off the TRT, probably thinking he wasn't going to get in trouble, or a lot of trouble at least. Did not think he was going to get tested randomly after that, so he took some HGH and some other stuff, and he was randomly tested after that, and they busted him for all of it. So, Chael Sonnen lost his job with the UFC, and he lost his job with Fox, and that broadcasting job that he had, that contract, that's a big loss for Chael Sonnen. And the guy's a phenomenal talker, but I understand the concept here, and I get it. You can't have a guy like Chael Sonnen talking about his opinion of fighters and athletes and stuff on Fox Sports 1. If you want to be regarded as a respectable source of sports information and news, you can't have a guy like Chael Sonnen, because he's a proven cheater, and you just can't trust his opinion, and you shouldn't reward a guy who could not play by the rules when he was out there. It'd be the same as we don't want to see Lance Armstrong, commentating or giving analysis constantly on Fox, or ESPN or any other channel, because we don't want to hear his opinions, especially if it has to do with something that has to do with, strong morals or doing what's right or wrong, or you know what I mean. So, I think Sonen's going to go back to doing some grappling. I think him and Barnett are both doing a grappling tournament soon. Best of luck to you, Chael, but you had to go, man, and you're getting what you deserved, unfortunately for you. Also, last night, very odd situation. Stefan Struve, he passed out right before his fight with Matt Mitrione. Before it was at UFC 176, they had to cancel the fight and made the 5-fight card a 4-fight card, and it's scary though, because Stefan Struve went through all those hard issues, and then his father passed away, so his head is all messed up. His body has turned on him, recently. If it was me, and if I was Stefan Struve, I would retire, or at least consider taking a very extended time off from fighting, training, anything that had to do with mixed martial arts. I mean, keep yourself in shape, but especially the nerves and the unknowingness of a fight, and the way Mitrione handled this was very classy, in my opinion. I think that he did a great job. He put his heart and his thoughts out to Stefan Struve, and he made a good point too. It's like, we would all much rather the fight have been canceled than see that happen in the octagon, because that is a very dangerous situation that the UFC avoided. And also, Dana White, very classy move on his part too. He paid both guys, Mitrione and Stefan Struve, who didn't even step foot in the octagon to fight last night, paid them both their show and their win bonus money. So they made the maximum amount of money, both, that they possibly could have for that fight. And due to the circumstances, Dana White took care of both of them. It shows what kind of guy Dana is. For all those people who like to bash Dana White, and I'm sure people will find a reason to bash him for this, saying, oh, well, they didn't even fight. There's also something called being a human being and realizing that things happen in life that are uncontrollable. Nobody expected Stefan Struve to pass out. Stefan Struve would have never intentionally done anything like that. No one's ducking anybody. Mitrione did great in response to this. Dana White is phenomenal, and that's the end of that. Once again, kudos to Dana White and the UFC as an organization for paying those guys, because fighters' health and safety is going to be number one every single time. The last thing I want to talk about is UFC 176 is coming up very soon, and I believe the card's in jeopardy, because as of right now, the most attractive fight on the card is Gegard Mousasi versus Ronaldo Jacare Souza. I love this fight, especially on paper. I think this is a great fight. I'm a huge fan of Jacare, and I'm a fan of Mousasi as well. Stylistically, this fight could be incredible. I think this is an awesome fight, and I believe it's absolutely main event worthy if this is not a pay-per-view. So, Rousey can't make it, and it's unfair for Mendes, in my opinion, to have to fight anybody, because I think he's earned this title shot. I don't think they should have to do, Mendes versus Swanson or Mendes versus Edgar or, anything like that. I think we should still get Mendes versus Aldo, just like planned. So, can anyone step up and main event UFC 176? Because I don't think Mousasi versus Jacare is main event worthy for a pay-per-view. Do they make this a Fox Sports 1 show? But can they? I don't know what the logistics of, the cable television thing is, and the time and the schedule and what's supposed to air and the way the sponsorships work and the licensing of everything. I don't know if it's even possible, but the UFC is probably working very, very hard on coming up with a new main event for UFC 176, because we do not want UFC 151 to happen again, where Dan Henderson had to drop out of his fight with John Jones, and Chael Sonnen stepped up, but Jones wouldn't fight him on 8 days' notice, and the whole thing got scrapped. We don't want to see another pay-per-view get scrapped. So Comment here on YouTube. Let me know who you think could step up for UFC 176. What would you do if you were the UFC? Follow me on Twitter at NOW_WORLD_ORDER. Send me direct messages on Twitter. Just send me messages in general on Twitter, and I will reply to them. My account is private, but I will follow you back, and I will absolutely accept your request to follow me, especially if you are a fan of mixed martial arts, professional wrestling, or if you're a good-looking girl. That always helps too. Please subscribe to this channel, and once again, thank everyone for subscribing who has subscribed. Follow me on Twitter, and all the positive feedback has been great. I really appreciate it. Y'all take it easy, have a good one, and I will be back soon. Bye-bye.